Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Crowd Chatter podcast. Today we have a video. Today is going to be the MLB review over June of Major League Baseball. Also, of course, just some announcements. Of course, we're gonna have some college football videos coming out very soon. Me and Stravinsky did the ACC. We did the ACC Coastal and Atlantic. So those videos will be coming out soon once I edit them. um, I'm still in the process of that. It takes a lot longer than you think. And so also, of course, today is the 4th of July. So if you're hearing a bunch of fireworks out in the background, that's why. So let's get this party started. Great day today, though. Happy 4th of July, everyone. It's a great day today. We gained our independence. Great day for our country. So let's move. So moving on, got the American League. Well, let's start right at the top. We got the American League East. New York Yankees at 58 and 22. Well, I mean, we've seen both New York teams this year for both sides, for the Mets and the Yankees. They both have been absolutely incredible. Both of these teams are having outstanding seasons. Of course, the Yankees, both Stanton and Judge. Well, Stanton did have one point of where he was hurt for a little bit, but Judge has stayed healthy all year long, and he's near at this point. He probably has over 30 homers, as he's having an incredible season. And then in terms of pitching, Luis Severino has come back, and he's been the old Luis Severino, which is very impressive for him. Jamison Tyon, who was a former failed prospect, has really showed out this year for him. And of course, well, Garrett Cole just did what Garrett Cole does, which is being good. So, very impressive season for the New York Yankees and the way that they're playing. You can see the offense here, how many runs they've been putting up, and then there's the pitching there. Incredible season for New York right now. I would have to say this is probably my favorite to win it all. I mean, Judge was at 29 homers. He's one short of 30. I thought he was at 30 already, but 29 homers, close enough. But at this point in time, I would have to say the New York Yankees very likely are the favorites to win the World Series right now. They're playing out of their minds. There really is just nobody right now who can stop this team offensively or defensively, for that matter. Um, these two teams are absolutely incredible, I'm sorry, this team has been absolutely incredible and has not. No one's been able to stop them. And so, unless something happens and their team falls off a cliff and guys like DJ LeMahieu, Aaron Judge, Josh Donaldson, Aaron Judge, if these guys all of a sudden stop producing, then we might have, then teams might have a chance. But this team's got all the pieces and parts. They even have Clay Holmes now as their closer. It's not even Chapman, which he's been struggling. But if he ever finds his feet again, look out. That could be a problem. But this Yankee team, I think, far and away at this point in time, is easily the best team in the league in terms of performance. Just nobody has played better than them. And most fans from the next team here are not going to like hearing me say that. That's the Boston Red Sox, who had a brutal start to the season. Really slow start. They were not playing well. And as of late, they have certainly picked up the pace, partially because Trevor Story has been significantly better. He still hasn't been as advertised for Boston, but he has definitely picked it up. He has looked more like himself, and has really helped out Boston's case. Really, pitching has been better for Boston as well, even though they're missing both Sale and Evaldi right now. Which those are both big pitchers for Boston. If those guys can come back, be the same, that'd be a big ad. That'd be a big ad for the Red Sox. But this is a team that has certainly, this team has playoff aspirations. Like I said, slow start, but they definitely have found their footing again and are rolling. I mean, like I said, slow start, but they have certainly found their pace again and are right back at it. Very impressed by Boston. This is a good team that definitely can, maybe like last year. I mean, they got to what uh, they got to the World Series or not World Series, conference finals, the AL conference finals when they played Houston, I believe. Yeah, and then they lost to Houston, and Houston lost to Atlanta. But this is a good Boston team. I mean, you got guys like JD Martinez, you got Xander Bogaerts, you got plenty of big time Rafael Devers. You got big time hitters on this team, along with Trevor Story, of course. I mentioned that. You got big time hitters on the team who can certainly hit the baseball, and you have solid pitching. So all the pieces and parts for Boston are there. Can they dethrone the Yankees? I don't think so. Because the New York Yankees are playing out of their mind. And even with Boston being 45 and 35, and I think being the top wild card team, they're still 13 games behind New York. So keep that in mind. Next team right behind behind Boston is the Toronto Blue Jays at 44 and 36. This team is just as interesting as Boston. They've kind of been up and down this year. Not exactly, the start that they were probably looking for. They probably thought they were going to be better yet. But the Blue Jays are a team that are mainly focused on the offensive end. This is a team that has so much offense from Vladimir Guerrero Jr. to George Springer to Bo Bichette to Lourdes Gurriel to this guy to Alejandro Kirk to just name a player and he can hit. Or Matt Chapman, they have him. Does an outstanding offense for the Toronto Blue Jays, and the question still remains on the defensive side, on pitching. Because they signed Kevin Gossman. That was a big time ad in free agency. I think he's been okay. Jose Barrios they got at the deadline last year when he was having a great season. This year, I know from experience, has been brutal. He's had some good outings where he has looked like Barrios when he was with the Twins, but most of the time he's actually been brutal. And, he's had a lot of really, really bad outings that has really killed the Blue Jays. But, this is a good pitcher. And so they're hoping that maybe he can regain form in the Blue Jays. Their sir was Hinu Jin Ryu, and I think he's on the IL right now and also has not looked like himself. So once again, pitching still seems to be an issue. Of course, we have the deadline. I think either close to the end of August. I think it's right around or not end of August, early August. I believe is when it is. Maybe I might be wrong on that. But of course, when the deadline rolls around, maybe the Blue Jays make a move to get another starting pitcher. Luis Castillo is a huge name out there, with the Reds certainly not competing this year. So that'll definitely, I think, be a name to watch come this off season. It'll be really interesting to see how that one goes. Yeah, Gossman's been good for Toronto. But this is a good Toronto team. I think they'll make the playoffs. I think they definitely have a chance of doing that. This year, there's going to be, of course, 3 wild card teams. So theoretically, you look at the 4 teams here, not named, well, the last one, but they all have chances of making it to the wild card playoffs, etc. So I think Toronto, this is a good team, but it needs to find some consistency with its pitching if it really wants to go deep into the playoffs. And we kind of said this last year because their offense was going bananas, but then they didn't have any pitching to back it up, which was a killer for the Blue Jays come last season. Now you also have, and then next on the list here we have the Tampa Bay Rays at 43 and 37. All these teams just right in a row, 13, 14, and 15, all a game behind each other. But the Tampa Bay Rays, this is a team that won the East last year, as they had 100 wins on the year last year. And this Tampa team is still solid. You have good pitching. And you have some good hitting. They have pieces and parts. They have good players that they can count on. I think they could use a couple additions come this off season. But this is a Tampa Bay team once again with playoff aspirations, and certainly I think has a chance of getting in the playoffs. And who knows, maybe they're the next Boston Red Sox and they make a run here. But this is a Tampa Bay team. You got Shane Baz. They're still missing Tyler Glass now, and they're still having a solid year, which is pretty impressive for Tampa Bay. Um, but for the Rays, really impressed with how this been so far. I think they also had a slower start, but they've been better as of late. Of course, they're 500 in their last 10 games. It's not on here; it's too far out of the way. But they're 500 in their last 10 games, so they're staying right in the middle, right in the pack, right in the pace, right on pace for where they are right now. And this is a good Tampa team, and I could totally see the Rays going to the playoffs and giving a team a run for their money. I think it's entirely possible. And the last team we have on here is the Baltimore Orioles, and I'm really surprised to actually see them even playing this well. The run differential is minus 25, but this is still a team that I never had any expectations for. They do have some good offensive players. They have some solid bats on the team, which is why they stay in a good majority of their games because their pitching certainly isn't doing it. But Baltimore's been above expectations, I'd say. Can they make the playoffs? I mean, they certainly have a chance. Really, I mean, if you look at it, they're basically their target right now would be the Tampa Bay Rays, of which they're only 6.5 games behind. So I think Baltimore certainly, if they want to make a run at the playoffs, they certainly could. But I don't think they will because they're still in the mindset of rebuilding. But if they still find themselves in a good position by the trade deadline, I wouldn't entirely be surprised to see if maybe Baltimore decide, what, let's go ahead and let's make a run for it. Let's see if we can make some noise. I doubt it because they're in the mind of rebuilding. Every other team in here is a playoff team, but we'll see what the Orioles end up wanting to do. But honestly, kind of surprising to see the Baltimore Orioles in the same position as they are right now, or see them in this position, and really not be that far out of the playoffs by this point. Most would have expected them to be long out of the race. And so now we go to the Central, the AL Central, and we start with the Minnesota Twins, who hold the lead of the division, not anywhere close to the Yankees record, as they sit at 45-37. This is a good Minnesota team. They have played pretty well. They have some nice offensive bats. The big thing for the Twins has been the fact that for most of the season, Byron Buxton has stayed healthy. And as many people know, Byron Buxton, big time outfielder for the Twins, has a major league history of getting hurt. The guy almost never, though, I mean, I don't know about even almost never, he hardly ever stays healthy. And so he constantly is out. He keeps doing this or that. And so he kept getting injured for one reason or another, and he just kept missing time. This year, however, he stayed healthy for the first, month of the season, and so Minnesota decided to go with load management on him to try and keep him healthy for more of the season, and it's worked, and he's been good. So that's a big up bonus for Minnesota. Of course, they got both Gio Urshela and Gary Sanchez in a trade from the Yankees. They've both contributed for the Twins. You also got Max Kepler. There's some people and Luis Arias. There's been a real surprise for the Minnesota Twins. Guy who just popped up out of nowhere, 25-year-old. He's got 340 average or somewhere around there. Not a lot of homers, but he has a huge average. Very versatile player as well. Comes in very handy for Minnesota. Very good utility player. Plays first, third, second, and even has gone in the outfield. So very valuable for Minnesota. Nice find there. Nice to go and get him. But Minnesota got a good team. Has some solid pitching too with Sonny Gray, who's had some IL stints already this year. But when he's been healthy, he's honestly been pretty darn good. And same goes for the prospect that they got in the trade for Nelson Cruz, and that is uh, forget his name, but yeah, they got him from the Tampa Bay Rays, and he's been good. I don't know why I forget his name, but for the Twins, this is a team that I could definitely see, making an addition at the deadline, um, and maybe making some noise in the playoffs. I could certainly see that for Minnesota. The AL Central is an interesting division, but Minnesota, they definitely have a solid team. And I really would not be entirely all that surprised to see if Minnesota were to make a run, because I certainly think they're capable of it. Joe Ryan, that's who it was. That's the name I was forgetting. But Joe Ryan has been pretty good for the Twins this year and has definitely been good for them. And of course, they also have Dylan Bundy, and he's had some decent starts. So it's been definitely uh, nice for Minnesota this year. Up next, we have Cleveland. We have Cleveland sitting at 40-38, and this team, honestly, for me, has been well above expectations. Now, they did take two tumbles today to the Tigers, and we'll get to our glorious team in a moment here. But for Cleveland, this is a team I did not expect much from. Because I knew they had some solid pitching, but it was a far cry from what it was a couple years ago. And I knew they had only Jose Ramirez in terms of hitting. At least that's all I knew about. And then they had Framil Reyes. And I thought, oh, maybe he does something. But other than that, I didn't really see Cleveland having much more in terms of their entire team. But Cleveland has really surprised me. They've had some players step up and make some plays, and Ahmed Rosario and Owen Miller, who have been getting some hits. Miles Straw has been pretty good. Stephen Kwan even had a good point during the season. I even think Jose Mercado was, decent at one point during the season. So they've had guys who have stepped up and made plays. Framil Reyes has been brutal for Cleveland. I don't even think he's playing right now. I think he's on the IL. But Jose Ramirez has been unbelievable for Cleveland. He's probably half the reason why they have, 335 runs. But, this is a Cleveland team that is doing probably more than many people would have thought. In terms of pitching, you got, of course, the ace of Shane Bieber, who has been outstanding for Cleveland. And then you got some young guys in the back with Tristan McKenzie, and then Aaron Savali. They have some, young pitchers, and this is kind of what Cleveland does. He has go through multiple pitchers. I mean, you had Shane Bieber. You have Shane Bieber. That is obviously their ace, and they're more than their best pitcher. And then you got Tristan McKenzie, another young pitcher. You got Aaron Savali, another young pitcher. You even have a great closer who's a young guy, but is already established as a great closer, and that's Emmanuel Clase. So Cleveland, once again, just seems to be loading up on the pitching, but we'll see where they go in terms of hitting. I think that's definitely what they'll need to focus on this offseason if they're looking to, once again, compete kind of like the Orioles. They didn't probably expect to find themselves in this position. So we'll see if Cleveland makes a move at the deadline once that comes. But so far, I'd say above expectations for Cleveland. They're doing much more than I would have expected for a team that only coming into the season had only one hitter known as Jose Ramirez, and then a really good pitcher in Shane Bieber, and a couple guys after that. Young guys, but I don't think any people would have been like, "Oh yeah, this guy's gonna go off." I don't think that would have been the case. But for Cleveland, good start. Well, not good start. So far, so good because we're already in July. But good start, but good season so far for Cleveland. Very surprised by them. Next, we have the Chicago White Sox, who have been a utter disappointment this year. Been better as of late, though, as they're at 38 and 39, just a game below 500, 4.5 games behind Minnesota. This team was expected to win the Central by a half a mile, because obviously last year there really wasn't anybody else in the division who was playing very well. Even Minnesota had fallen off a cliff last year after they made the playoffs. And so it became pretty evident that this year it seemed like the White Sox would just run away with the division again, and they haven't. It has not been good for them. The offense has kind of sputtered. It's kind of gone all over the place. The only consistent hitter has really been Tim Anderson, and the rest has kind of been all over the place. Their pitching's been all over the place. Lucas Giolito's had some good starts and some not so good starts. And then Dylan Cease has no idea how to not walk like 5 people a game. He's really good at striking people out, but he's also he has a major control problem. His pitchers kind of go all over the place, but when he's hitting, he's nasty. Just saying. But Chicago definitely has some holes, and is showing this year. And we'll see if Chicago can make some improvements. Get some at the deadline. Um, we'll see what happens with the White Sox, but this is definitely a team that had, playoff aspirations. Oh, we're going to win the championship this year, and well, they got nothing to show for it. But so far for Chicago, they're hoping for much better than what they're seeing right now. But so far for Chicago, kind of disappointing. But not as disappointing as the next team, and here we go. The Detroit Tigers sitting at 32 and 47. They did win 2 games today, which puts them 6-4 in their last 10 games. But you can see the runs scored, and you'll quickly find out that that has been a. Not only has that been among one of the worst in Major League. No, well being the worst in Major League Baseball, well under the next worst. They're the worst in offense by a pretty sizable margin. The problem for Detroit, they've been actually scoring more runs lately, which is impressive. I like seeing that we can score runs, that we can actually hit the ball. But the problem lately has actually been more in terms of pitching, which was the strength of our team to start the season. At the start of the season, we couldn't put any runs on the board, but our pitching was keeping us in most of our games, and now we're kind of seeing reverse of that as our hitting's been getting better, but our pitching's just been kind of getting worse. And the big part of this has been Tariq Skubal, who had an awesome start to the season, was looking like he could even be a Cy Young candidate the way he was playing. I mean, striking people out, going deep into games. I mean, he was putting the Tigers in a position to win every single time. He'd barely give up like a run. But as of lately, he's just been absolutely getting destroyed by everyone he's starting against, and it has not looked good for Skubal. Of course, every pitcher hits their low points, but this is certainly a long low point for Tariq Skubal. And of course, we also have multiple injuries still in terms of pitching, with still not having Eduardo Rodriguez. We won't have Casey Mize. He's getting Tommy John surgery. Of course, we don't have Turnbull either. He had Tommy John surgery just last year, so he's out all this year. We don't have Matt Manning either. So, we're missing still a ton of players, a ton of pitchers. And so it's really hurt the Tigers in terms of pitching. But for the Tigers, it still remains on terms of, just getting the two to actually play well at the same time. You gotta have the hitting doing well, and you gotta have the pitching doing well. So far, that has not been the case, which has led to the Tigers being probably the biggest disappointment this year. With adding guys like Austin Meadows, who, by the way, Meadows has just hardly played all season long, which has been another issue for the Tigers. I mean, he's hardly played. I mean, when he was playing, he was pretty good. Hadn't hit homers, but he was hitting the ball. He was getting on base. He was definitely looking good. But then, of course, he ran into many illnesses. Ended up running into a bout of vertigo. He came back. Then he contracted COVID, and now he's got strains in both of his strains in both of his Achilles. So yeah, he's been through a lot. So that's a big problem for the Tigers. That's that mess. So for the Tigers, I mean, at this point, it just kind of seems like we're doomed. I mean, really, what you're looking at here for Detroit is you gotta catch up with Chicago, which we're already 7 games. This isn't Baltimore trying to catch up to Tampa Bay, who are only 6.5 games behind. Tampa Bay's already in the playoffs. We gotta catch up to Chicago, who are already 7 games behind, and Chicago's like another 4.5 games even behind Tampa. I think it's 3, but we'd have to catch up with Chicago first before we even thought about making the playoffs, which I think is a pretty big stretch for Detroit. Um, but we'll see what happens. I mean, I'm just sad because I thought the Tigers really had a chance of maybe making the playoffs this year, and maybe they go somewhere. But the offense has been so incompetent, just has not been able to hit. And then when they did start hitting, our pitching started going to crap. So it has not panned out for Detroit. And Spencer Torkelson, big time prospect, he hasn't played really that well. Javi Baez was brutal for a big stretch of the season. He's been better as of late, but again, it still isn't really helping. But we got the sweep today in a doubleheader for 4th of July, so that was nice. Sure, they already had their fireworks celebration over there. But for the Tigers, they have work to do. If this team wants a chance at the playoffs, then their offense and their pitching need to get on the same page, and now, because time's running out. We only got now. We're over halfway through the season now, and so you need to get the two things on the same page at the same time if you want to go somewhere. So far, we have not done that, but maybe things change later on here. Last team in this division, crazily enough, is actually still behind the Tigers, and that is the Kansas City Royals. This is a team that, I kind of expected to be this low. This is not a good team. Not a lot of talent, and not really a lot of talent either. So I'm not surprised to see the Royals being close to the bottom of the bottom of the division here at 29-49. This is a team that just doesn't have a lot of good players. Obviously they got Bobby Witt Jr. as a big time prospect. Whit Merrifield is probably one of their only good players on their team, and he hasn't really been that good either. Carlos Santana, that's another guy they have. I think he's not even on the IL. And even when he was playing, he wasn't good. So, they don't really have hitting, and they don't really have a lot of pitching, and so they're not a great team. So, Kansas City, not really surprised to see them this low on a totem pole. Do they have a chance at the playoffs? I highly doubt it, because they don't really have any pitching, and there's not really any hitting to offset it either. So, I don't really expect much from this team at all. So, yeah, that's all I got on Kansas City. Now we go to the West, of which we have the Houston Astros sitting the top of the division at 52-27. They have been on a roll as of lately here, going 9-1 their last 10 games on a 7-game win streak as well. Absolutely dominating. Their offense has been pretty good. Pitching wise, they've been solid as well. Houston's got plenty of talent and definitely is going to make a run. So we'll see how it goes for the Astros, but this is a really good team, and honestly, I think this is probably the biggest threat for the New York Yankees. Someone from the National League maybe can win, but in terms of the American League, Houston is their biggest threat. With the way that they're playing, with the way that guys are pitching and hitting, Houston is by far their biggest threat. They've been having a fantastic season. Both their pitching and their hitting has been very impressive. So we'll see where Houston goes, how they play, but they are far and away the best team in the West right now. Next up, we have the Seattle Mariners at 40-42. Seattle has a decent team. Really, Seattle's a really interesting team because last year it seemed they were just in the middle of a rebuild and they weren't going to go anywhere. And then it kind of seemed they had a really good. They were playing very well last year, and Seattle was confused. Like, what will we do? We're in position to make the playoffs. Do we actually make a run for it? And so they did, and they came up 2 games short. This year they've been pretty. Sorry, they've been pretty good as well. 7-3 in their last 10 games. They've won their last 3. For Seattle, they have a lot of young guys who have come in to start pitching. Of course, they have George Kirby. That's the latest pitching prospect that they brought up. Logan Gilbert's another really young pitcher. He was a rookie last year. This year, he's been very good for Seattle. And in terms of prospects, in terms of hitting, they have Julio Rodriguez, who is having an outstanding rookie season. They had Jared Kelenic, but he's not playing well. But they have pieces and parts on both sides of the field in terms of pitching and in terms of hitting, and it's going pretty well for them. They're still well ways behind Houston, but they have a chance at making the playoffs. They can still make a run for it. You know, only basically 2 games. They're only 2 games below 500. So they certainly have a chance of making some noise, and we'll see if that's the case for Seattle. But so far, not too bad. Considering the slow start you had, I'm impressed. Color me impressed. Next, we have the Texas Rangers at 37-41. This team had a brutal start to the year. They had the interesting offseason of where they decided to throw a crap ton of money at Corey Seager and Marcus Semien to have the highest paid in middle infield in all of baseball, and probably have a middle infield that costs more than Oakland's entire team. So that's Texas for you. The Rangers definitely, I think, have those are the 2 big players for them. They don't really have much else. But their team has been good enough to at least get them to where they are now. And, if they can make some more additions, get some better players, and continue to get better, Texas can definitely make some noise, they have good players. Semien had a brutal start to the year, but he has certainly picked up the pace as of late and has looked pretty good. And Corey Seager has been solid all year. So Texas definitely can make a run, but as of right now, they need some work. They could use some pieces and parts on both sides, and they don't really have those right now. Next up, we have the Los Angeles Angels. LA Angels at 37-44. They have been a major league disappointment since their start to the season of where they looked so good. And they were right there with Houston and were competing with them. And then all of a sudden, they just fell off a cliff. They couldn't get hits. They were struggling. They went on like a 10-game losing streak. And then, of course, they fired John Madden as their manager. That was a while ago. I don't know. I don't remember if I mentioned it in the last video for the last month I did, but he was fired as the manager of the LA Angels, and so now they have an interim, of course, and it still has not gone well. And the Angels, I'm not really surprised because the Angels don't really have, they're kind of like the Cleveland coming into the season. They didn't really have a lot of great talent coming into the year. They had Mike Trout, of course, they had Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani, of course, which are 2 great players. Other than that, there was really like Noah Syndergaard, and then there was Jared Walsh, and then there's Taylor Ward, who all of a sudden is having a good year this year. So it's like they didn't really have anything outside of Trout and then Otani when it came to established really good players. Now Syndergaard is too, but he's well past his Thor days. As for Jared Walsh, he's a one time. I think he's a one hit wonder. I mean, he's doing pretty good this year, I think, still, but and not a big Walsh guy. He's still decent. He's still a solid player. I just don't think he's anything to write home about. But for the Angels, this is a team that definitely is, I think, better than their record. I mean, they've been brutal, really. They were doing pretty good to start the season, and now they've just completely fallen off a cliff. I would say they've come down a little more back. They've come down. They came down to earth, and then they went farther below because they just cannot. They've just really struggled lately, and it has not been a good look for the Angels. But they said 37-44. And then we have the Oakland A's all the way down there at 26-55. Are we really surprised? Not really, because they decided to sell away their entire team at the end of last season. So they have nothing left outside of Frankie Montas, who's probably going to get traded somewhere as well. So, I mean, you can look for that at the deadline. What other prospects are they going to get from another team? Oakland is just not good. And this team is a major league struggle bus. And we kind of expected this from Oakland to see, just this. To see them not play well, to see them not really do anything whatsoever, continue to lose games. They're not a good team. They're not even in a good. They're not even in a good field. So it's just not a good. It's just not a good environment for Oakland. They're not a good team, and they're not in a good setting either. They want a new stadium. They can't get a new stadium. So not really much is working out for the Oakland A's. But I mean, we kind of expect them to suck, and well, guess what they're doing. So that's gonna be it for this video. Next up, we'll have the National League, and after that, I'll see you guys later. So of course, I already told you the videos that are coming out soon. We already did the breaking news video of where all sports lost its mind at the end of June. So you want to go see that video. Me and Srbensky did a video on that, and we'll have more of me and Srbensky coming up. We'll have more, of course, on the over-unders because we still have the Big 12 and the SEC to do. I already did the ACC, and we already did the ACC, and then we did the Pac-12 and the Big 10 already. So we'll get to those other two conferences, and then we'll probably do like something else with the bigger teams, the bigger conferences. So we'll do like the Notre Dames, and Notre Dame and Cincinnati, and the bigger teams that we want to do. But that's all for us. Until next time, adios, everyone.